remove those obstacles for us. We have to remove those obstacles. And we saw those obstacles, the three kakaras, the Kamani, Kanchana and Kirti. Attachment for these three, that's one of the obstacles. We are so attached to all these things. So with this mind, we pray to God. It doesn't work out that way. The Shigra, He will not come immediately. So first we have to wean our mind of our attachment for these three kakaras through discrimination, through renunciation, through all that, through detaching ourselves from these. And along with that, kirtana. Both. We have simultaneously, they have to go. That is one obstacle. Second is our egoism. We feel that we are self-sufficient. We depend so much on our own resources or the resources of the world. But this dependence of God is not there. This ego, that is another great obstacle in God appearing before us, Shigram. So these are the two main obstacles. The third was aparadha, that is absence of radha, absence of vyakulata. But actually that is not something that we can really control. That vyakulata has to come on its own, it has to dawn. But if we take care of the first two, then radha will manifest in our heart, that vyakulata will manifest in our heart. And then Shigrameva Avirbhavati. God will present, will appear before us, will manifest itself to us, that God principle. And Anubhavayati. So God will make us realize Him. So God has been helping us right from day one of our spiritual sadhana. God is there in the form of scriptures. God is there in the form of conscience in our heart. We want to do something out of attachment or anger or hatred, and God sitting in our heart is telling, don't do it. So God is helping us at every step, and that help of God will continue, because finally the realization will depend only on the mercy of God. And even in this realization there are gradations which we saw. The devotee, when that bhava, that love consolidates, so to say, the devotee feels that he or she is living in the loka of God, in the world of God. Further, he or she will feel that he or she is interacting with God itself. It's no more that the objects and the world belong to God, but they are God. The devotee will develop a likeness for God, and finally will become one with God. That is parabhakti. So, different kinds of experiences, all are valid experiences of God, experiences which have been validated by great bhaktas. So this anubhavayati cha bhaktan, that was the sutra. We are towards the end of this Narada Bhakta Sutra, so Narada is in a mode to conclude, so to say. So the next sutra is Trisatyasya bhaktireva gariyasi, bhaktireva gariyasi. So it's repetition of this phrase, bhaktireva gariyasi. Bhaktireva gariyasi means bhakti alone is supreme. Love of God is supreme. And this sutra is interpreted in two ways. Especially the word Trisatya is interpreted in two ways. In one interpretation, Trisatya means the three forms of sadhana, so to say. Jnana yoga, karma yoga, bhakti yoga. All these are true paths of sadhana. So they are Trisatya, three truths, so to say. So amongst these three, bhakti alone is supreme. Bhakti alone is supreme. And of course, Narada is an advocate of bhakti. So he has earlier also stated why bhakti is greater. Satu karma jnana yogebhyo pyadikatara, and all that. In bhakti there is no criteria of adhikara, eligibility. Everyone and anyone can be a bhakta. Bhakti is natural. It's a natural sentiment of love when directed towards God, it becomes bhakti. So it is natural. Then it is phalarupa. The sentiment just becomes more and more refined. The sadhana and the sadhya, there is not much difference. So like that, different reasons were given why bhakti is great among all the three paths. That is one explanation. The other explanation is the word Trisatya means God Himself. Trisatya is that which is Satya, which is true in all the three times of past, present and future. The things that we are aware of, starting from our own mind, these are changeful. Our mind that was few years back is not today the same, nor would it be after some days. Body is changing, people around us, things, everything is changing, nothing is permanent except the Lord. The God who has been with us not only in this life but from all our lives and will be with us throughout our future. That is Trisatya. Satya of past, present and future. The Satya of Jagarat, Swapna, Sushupti. The world of waking, it's kind of lost in dream state. The world of dream is lost in Sushupti. Sushupti is lost. Like that in all the three states. But the Lord is there in all the three states and the substratum of all the experiences. So He is Trisatya. So devotion of the Supreme Lord, that alone is highest. That's the second interpretation of this sutra. So to say, he is eulogizing this path of bhakti, but also telling us a couple of points that we should worship only the highest God. He is not given any name and form, the highest God, who is eternal, past, eternally present in past, present and future. That God, that is the creator, sustainer and destroyer of this world, who is our own self, the Ishvara. The bhakti should be done only of Ishvara, only of that Supreme God. The devotion to all other minor deities, Narada doesn't accept as bhakti per se or bhakti proper. There is also bhakti. It is kamya bhakti. We worship minor deities who are in charge, so to say, of various natural forces. We worship them to get certain things. That becomes kamya bhakti. He is not talking of that here. He says a simple bhakti. Simply means untainted by any self-interest. That pure bhakti of the Supreme God, that alone is highest. And we should take recourse to that. Now he is saying it is highest, obviously with a view to encourage us to take recourse to such pure bhakti towards the highest God, towards the Supreme God, who is Trisatya. So that is his exhortation, so to say, and he emphasizes it by repeating it, Bhaktireva Gariyasi, this pure devotion that alone is supreme. As I said, he is towards his concluding, so to say, this Narada Bhakti Sutras. So that's why he gives this sutra, Trisatyasya Bhaktireva Gariyasi. The next sutra is quite interesting. It's a long one. It's a very long sutra. It ends with Ekarupa api shatadha bhavati. It's talking of bhakti and various modes in which bhakti manifests itself. So ekadha, it is of one kind only, it is one bhakti only. Api ekadashadha bhavati. It manifests itself in 11 different ways. So Narada has listed 11 different expressions or manifestations of bhakti. 11 different manifestations of bhakti Narada has listed here. Now, it doesn't mean that bhakti can be restricted only to these 11 manifestations. Bhakti is love, and love can manifest in innumerable forms, just as water comes down or runs in innumerable channels. So bhakti, the love can flow in any direction, in any form. in any way. But Narada has presented here 11 stereotypes, so to say, in which this love manifests itself. There are 11 total. So it starts with Guna Mahatmya Sakti, attachment towards the gunas and Mahatmya, the glories and qualities of the Lord. Guna Mahatmya Sakti, Rupa Sakti, love for the form of God. There is Puja Sakti, that is love for worshipping God. There is Smarana Sakti, there is love for remembrance of God. Then there are 4 attitudes. That is the attitude of a servant, that of a friend, that of a spouse, that of a child, or that of a parent, not because it's Vatsalya, so of Yashoda, that of a parent of God. In these attitudes, love manifests itself. And last 3 are Atmanivedana Sakti, that is the attachment or love manifesting itself in the form of self-surrender, Atmanivedana. Then there is Tanmayata Sakti, that is love manifesting as being one or filled with thought of God. And last is Paramaviraha Sakti, that is Asakti, love manifesting in the form of pang of separation, so to say, pangs of separation, viraha. So these are the 11 forms in which this love manifests itself, love of God manifests itself. Narada uses perhaps deliberately the word asakti. In all the 11 items, he has used the word asakti. Generally, even in religious literature, asakti word is used for attachment for the things and people and beings of the world. There is Vishaya Sakti, Kanchana Sakti, Kanta Sakti, so many are there. So it's kind of an obstacle. Asakti is taken to be an obstacle in spiritual life. But Narada uses that very word for expressions of bhakti. Maybe he wants to say that, look, it is the same emotional capital that you have, that we spread out in the world and it becomes an obstacle. But the same asakti, you direct it towards God and it becomes bhakti, it becomes helpful. Asakti for the world is an obstacle, but asakti for God is a great help. He wants to perhaps emphasize this fact because this asakti that we have, it cannot just be wished away. We cannot just get rid of our attachment, our dependence on the world. We feel that we cannot live without certain people and things, certain positions. Whatever, people have attachment for different entities, so to say. That extreme dependence, that extreme attachment, we feel we just cannot get rid of it. And it is not possible to get rid of it. That's what he is trying to tell. Just as a diamond can cut diamond. So, another asakti alone can really cut another asakti. And asakti alone can cut another asakti. It is the love of God that can really cut the love of the world. That's the point he wants to make. That it is the same asakti. If you want to free yourself from your entanglement with the world, be entangled with the God. That asakti will cut your asakti for the world. So this asakti is very strange, Of course, in this there is a process that we saw earlier. Tattu Vishetyagat Sangatyagat Avyavratta Bhajanat. So this shifting doesn't happen in a day, there is a process. The first is negative. We have to discriminate. We have to free ourselves from our entanglements with the world. But simultaneously, we should turn that attachment towards God. If that doesn't happen, then even Viveka Vairagya will not last long. Viveka Vairagya has to be immediately followed, so to say, by devotion to God. Then only it will be sustainable. Otherwise, this Viveka Vairagya will not be sustainable. That emotional capital which we withdraw from the world, it has to be invested in God, in spiritual life. Otherwise, it will not work. It will not last long. That withdrawal will not last long. And that's what he said, Sukhadukhe chalabhadityakte kale pratikshamane kshanardhamapi vyartham nanyayam. So you have given up Sukha, Dukkha, Ichha, Labha, etc. But don't waste even a time, even a second. Be engaged in spiritual practices. That emotional energy which is saved by disengaging ourselves from the world has to be engaged in God. Then only it will be fruitful. So this is what he is telling by using the word asakti. That it is the same emotional capital. We free it from the world and attach it to God. He has given 11. There could be some kind of gradation into it. Gradation in the sense it's not going from first standard to second standard. It is not that. It is not a watertight compartment. But there is some kind of gradation. There is some kind of journey, so to say, in the 11 types that Narada has listed here. See, in Bhagavad Gita, we have a ladder of descent. A ladder of descent is there. So, dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodh. Like that, how a man, a woman falls. A ladder of descent is there. You know something, you think about it continuously, you develop a liking for it, then you develop attachment for it, then you develop complete dependence on it. Finally, the person loses his or her smriti. Smriti, the pedigree, the position in the society, everything is lost. The discrimination is lost. And buddhinashat pranashyati. There is fall. So there is ladder of descent is there. And we see in the society many such shipwrecks, so to say. Shipwrecks. Person really wrecks his or her life, falling for one passion or the other. Either it is love for money, love for pleasures, love for power, whatever. And it doesn't happen in a day. That person, so to say, creates that wreck brick by brick. We see it in the world. But think of Mirabai. She also was from a princely family, position in the society. Out of love for God, she gave up everything. Took to some clothes of a mendicant and went to Vrindavan, giving up her hearth and home. Some kind of smriti bhramsha was there. She forgot her royal pedigree. She lost that sense of discrimination. What will happen to my parents? What will happen and all that. But today we sing the praises of Mirabai. Why? Because the object of that attachment was God Himself. And there is also a ladder. This ladder of descent, the process is almost the same. May not be exactly the same, but Narada is trying to list out how a devotee progresses. If there is a ladder of descent, what Narada has given is a ladder of ascent. The same process, so to say, when the object changes, when the object is world, it becomes a ladder of descent. When the object is God, it becomes a ladder of ascent. We rise up and up, above and above, till we reach God. So this ladder of descent is converted into a ladder of ascent when we change the object of our attachment. When the object becomes the world, it is a ladder of descent. When the object is God, it is a ladder of ascent. That is the difference. Change the object. Sri Ramakrishna says, give the direction, change the direction of your kama krodha, and it becomes spiritual sadhana. So the 11 things, then we come to the 11 things that are listed. The first one is Guna Mahatmya Sakti, that is singing the praise and glory of the Lord. That's how we know something. We first know of God. We hear, read, listen about the glories of God. There is knowledge there. Knowledge of God. We get knowledge of God. So that is the first step, so to say. Guna Mahatmya Sakti. We get attached to that. Then we hear there is the real nature of God is Nirguna Nirakara, without any attributes. But the same God is also Saguna. It is the repository of all blessed qualities. It also is Sakara, it attains many forms. And then of those many forms, our heart, so to say, falls for a particular form. That becomes our Ishtadevata. That particular form of God becomes our Ishtadevata. That is called Rupa Sakti. We get attached to a particular form of God. First we hear about God. Then that hearing makes us know more. And then we come to a particular form of God, which, so to say, enshrines itself in our heart, which steals our heart. And then we become attached to that particular form, that is Rupa Sakti. But this love of Rupa, love of God, they say it is a great teacher. This love is a great teacher. It teaches how to serve. Love teaches how to serve. They say in some of the temples of North, during winter nights, they keep hearth in the shrine because it is very cold outside. So if you think of it, some devotee, his or her love for God, told him or her that, look, it is so cold outside. Why not keep something warm in the shrine which will make Lord more comfortable? It is the love which teaches how to serve. They say in certain temples during the winter or rainy season or winter, they don't put garlands on the Lord because it's very cold. The Lord cannot bear the touch of those cold flowers. This is love teaching service. So this love translates itself into puja. Puja is nothing but serving the Lord. So it is the love which translates itself into puja. This puja takes various forms. We physically worship the God, we circumambulate, or we go to Tirtha Darshana. Our own day-to-day activities we perform as a service of God. We serve other beings, knowing them to be manifestations of God. So all these are different forms of puja only. So that is how one after another it leads, one leading to other, just as the ladder of descent leads one below, lower and lower. This ladder of ascent leads one higher and higher. Right, we see next time. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.